Oh, okay. Hello, I am here with my notes on Chapter 13 of House of Leaves. I am doing this as a live video just because there's a lot of notes on this section, and what's stopping me from pitting some of these videos out is the thought of having to edit stuff. So just going live is easier to have the two screens going simultaneously. I'm not able to read comments because I only have one screen that I can see right now. So apologies to any comments coming in. But yeah, let's just get into Chapter 13 finally of House of Leaves. It starts on page 313. I'm just going to double check that you can see the whole page. Yep. Okay, so begin with the epigraph. So this is from a poem called The Other Tiger by Borges. I do strongly suggest you read it. I wrote it out here. But I found this really nice version on the website here. There's some nice pictures and stuff. So it is, oh, they're not going to let me, okay, never mind. I didn't realize it fades out. I think that's, see, this would be a pain. No, I'm just going to read my notes that I have here. Okay. Yeah, I think there's links here between, thematically, between the Borges poem and House of Leaves, so I'm just going to read the poem. I think of a tiger. The half-light enhances the vast and painstaking library, and seems to set the bookshelves at a distance. Strong, innocent, new-made, and blood-stained. It will move through its jungle in its morning and leave tracks across the muddy edge of a river, unknown, nameless. In its world there are no names, nor past, nor future, only the sureness of the passing moment. And it will cross the wilderness of distance and sniff out in the woven labyrinth of smells the smell peculiar to morning and the scent of deer delectable. Among the slivers of bamboo I notice its stripes, and I have an inkling of the skeleton under the magnificence of the skin which quivers. In vain the convex oceans and the deserts spread themselves across the earth between us. From this one house in a remote lost seaport in South America, I dream you, follow you, O tiger, on the fringes of the Ganges. Afternoon creeps in my spirit, and I keep thinking that the tiger I am conjuring in my poem is a tiger made of symbols and shadows, a sequence of prosaic measures, scraps remembered from encyclopedias, and not the deadly tiger, the luckless jewel which in the sun or the deceptive moonlight follows its path in Bengal or Sumatra, of love, of indolence, of dying. Against the symbolic tiger I have planted the real one, it whose blood runs hotly. And today, 1959, the 3rd of August, a slow shadow spreads across the prairie. But still the act of naming it, of guessing what is its nature and its circumstances, creates a fiction, not a living creature, not one of those who wander on the earth. Let us look for a third tiger. This one will be a form in my dream like all the others, a system and arrangement of human language, and not the tiger of the vertebrae, which out of all mythology paces the earth. I know all this, but something drives me to this ancient and vague adventure, unreasonable, and still I keep looking throughout the afternoon for the other tiger, which is not in this poem. I think that line is significant too. The other tiger that is not in this poem. And I'm just going to pull up the timeline here by day August 3rd. We don't have an August 3rd here. Yeah, that's interesting. Okay. But we do have a pelican poem found on page 576, which is right here, August 7th, August 3rd. This one up here. Pelican transpires by his cup of tea and decides to try his hands at conjuring. So like the idea of conjuring up a tiger in the book. And there's this other quote from Borges. I have it written down here. I am withdrawing to write a book, and another time I am withdrawing to construct a labyrinth. Everyone imagined two works. To no one did it occur that the book and the maze were one and the same thing. I thought that was interesting. Okay, just an interesting word to point out: cadmium, from Cadmus, the first Greek hero, but also QDM, which means foot. And feet are very important in House of Leaves, because the big toe is where love lives. Okay. Yeah, I've mentioned these colors before, but they are not in my notes here. Okay. Why is that not in my notes? Interesting. I gotta fix that, but I have a note here. Page 615, we get mentions of these colors in a letter from Pelifina. On page 615. So here we have red, indigo, celadon, heliotrope, and gamboge. Those are all colors. And on page 615, we get other colors: madder, which is red; azure, which is blue; celadon, which is a pale green blue; and gamboge, I don't know how to pronounce that, which is a deep saffron to mustard yellow. And these are actually all different colors of pills. So it's interesting that we get this mentioned here. I'm just going to make a note and expand on that on there later. Okay. Next page. Page 314. We get this little bit about Daisy singing. She says, ba-da, ba-ba, which is actually the opening words to the sorry, I'm getting distracted here. To a song called Haunted by Poe, which is Mark C. Danilowski's sister. And she released this album in conjunction with House of Leaves. So I'm going to just open this link here, hopefully. And we can listen to it. I think my volume's up. Yeah. So we can at least, we're not going to listen to the whole thing because it's 5 minutes and 20 seconds, but I'll just play the beginning, if it will. Play. Oh. Ba-da-ba-ba. You hear that there? Okay. I'll put a link to that down below as well. It's also interesting that ba-da-ba-ba is Morse code for L, and it's said twice. I have the lyrics here. It's said twice, and if we go to page 582, here we get these things here. We get the two L's here, and it's Morse. It's code for all well. So we get Morse code directing us to this other kind of code here. Yeah, so that was interesting. So I'm just going to read out the lyrics to Haunted. Come here, pretty please, can you tell me where I am? Why won't you say something? I need to get my bearings, I'm lost, and the shadows keep on changing. And I'm haunted by the lives that I have loved, and actions I have hated. I'm haunted by the lives that wove the web inside my haunted head. Don't cry, there's always a way. Here in November, in this house of leaves, we'll pray. Please, I know it's hard to believe to see a perfect forest through so many splintered trees. You and me and these shadows keep on changing. Come here, I won't say please. One more look at the ghost before I'm going to make it leave. Come here, I've got the pieces here, time to gather up the splinters, build a casket for my tears. I'm haunted by the hallways in this tiny room, the echoes there of me and you, the voices carrying the tune. What is it, Annie? Yeah. So those are the lyrics to that poem. Okay, on page 315, we get a reference to Daisy playing with her Spanish doll. We do have another reference to a Spanish doll. On page 606, again, Pelafina. Page 606, we have the Spanish phrase, pardon my Spanish, rompido mi muñeca? Sure. Which means I broke my doll, but it's also like a euphemism for like a broken wrist, or I slit my wrist, kind of like suicide. And we also have references previously to Daisy having scars on her wrists after playing with scissors. So the Spanish doll is more than just a doll. Yeah. Here we have footnote 261. We actually have this real magazine, but the article is not real. Adding into dependent. This is actually from the Psychology Today archives. So it was all about love, and these were the articles that were in there. So we have In the Name of Love, The Harvard Professor and the UFOs, Soulmates, What Makes Marriages Work. Yeah, just the Psychology of the Miraculous, All in the Family. Violence Has a Home Address. Yeah. So I think that's... Is it wrong to eat your dog? Sorry. So yeah, that was that issue from March 1994, Psychology Today. I thought it was interesting that it's all about love, marriage, soulmates, that kind of idea. Okay. Page 316, we get this mention of the absent tiger. We've had the reference to that poem by Danilevsky at the beginning about the different tigers that he conjures that are not real, so like absent, not there. Here we get a small hand mirror. This is something that Karen treasures. We see on page 58, way back here. I'm usually skipping forward, but this time we're skipping back. On page 58, we get this phrase down here. Karen spent every night of her 14th year composing that smile in front of a blue plastic handled mirror. So she's still stuck with that mirror. We also get a reference, here we go flipping forward, in 615, where Pelafina says, practicing my smile in a mirror. So another link between the Navidsons and Pelafina there. We have a reference to a magazine, Grand Street, volume 54. This is not a real person or article, but I will open this link here. And you can see this is, I wonder if you can see that. No, that it's a tiny picture. There's no way to make it bigger. So there's different articles here. Is that going to show the front picture? No. Is it? Maybe. No. Okay. So there's different poems in here. We have one by William S. Burroughs, who's been referenced in House of Leaves. May the Water Keep Vigil. There's pictures. I referenced this one, I believe, Park, Streets, and Vehicles. There's some poems in there. I'll include these links everywhere. There's more about UFOs. I took this quote from Vito Acconci, who's quoted in here. It says, a space that's usable by people becomes, in the end, used and used up. The ultimate public space is a ravaged space. The space has been used so much by people that the space is used up. It disintegrates under their feet. That idea of the hallway and the house being this place that has been used up and begins to disintegrate by the end, I thought was interesting. Okay, we're going to go over to page 317. looked up the coracoid process, scapula spine, trapezius, delta, all those things. So the coracoid process is actually part of the scapula, the shoulder bone, which connects the upper arm to your clavicle. The scapula spine is a prominent part of the scapula again. The trapezius, I'm not a doctor, is the vertebrae muscle attaching the neck and spine to scapula. If you work out, your traps are those muscles like that pop out right by your neck. The delta infraspinatus, which continues over on page 318 over here, are muscles in the shoulder and back. And I thought these were interesting because on page 50 here, we get another reference to collarbones. The fragile collarbone, tracing a shadow of blank, and it was tracing the shadow of a key, because clavicle comes from the word clavis, which means key. So I thought that was interesting. And then in footnote 265, so it starts over here, but it continues over here. It's interesting that there's no author listed here for the Navidson record, the novelization, because we're always wondering who the author is. Well, not even these people know. Okay. Page 318. We have footnote 266. There's a lot of different magazines referenced here, and I've managed to find. I think I found all of them. So we'll just open those up and look at them. So this one is U.S. News and World Report, Volume 121. Okay. This is what the cover looked like. This was all that I could find. Outlook 97. 20 Ways to Save the World. Toxic Fame, Failed Prediction, Buzzwords in the Year in Pictures, 1996. So that's what that looks like. And then we'll open the next one. I couldn't find anything else about it. The Premier Magazine. Here, there's a Schwarzenegger. But I got a good look at the whatever this is called, the table of contents. And on page 68, we actually get a movie called Cliffhanger, which I watched, and it's really bad. I don't recommend it. It's kind of funny, actually. But it's about a guy who is a mountain climber, and he has to go rescue... Well, he thinks he's going up to rescue people. I won't spoil the movie for you if you want to watch it. But yeah, so... the actual director... We know that films are very important in the movie, too. So the actual director of Cliffhanger actually took his crew up, like, 10,000 feet in the air. Yeah, so I thought that was interesting that the actual article... The actual pages mentioned is about that. Okay, then we have the Life magazine. And the table of contents indicate article on page 26, which is the article referenced here, is Journey, Two Climbers Cut About a Legend on the Rocks of North America's Toughest Mountain Face, an article about Todd Skinner and Paul Piana, who made the first free ascents of many routes around the world, including his historic first free ascent with Paul Piana in 1988 of the Salaith Wall on El Capitan in Yosemite. So I was able to find a picture of the cover, and then I guess on the list for it, I found it on eBay. I didn't buy it, but I found it on eBay, and on the listing it told you what the articles were inside. So that's just what this looks like. And then we have Climbing Magazine, which is also referenced here. I couldn't find a table of contents of that, but this features an article on David Brashears. He's a mountaineer into movie-making photography, and he worked on the Cliffhanger movie. So it's David Brashears' profile right there. So that's... I really don't like this Imgur website, but it's just an easy place to upload pictures. So yeah, that's the magazine there. And then we have Details magazine, which we'll open here, and that was the Liv Tyler magazine. I couldn't find a table of contents, but talks about fashion. Silverchair, I love Silverchair. The band, I couldn't really find anything else about it. Okay. So, now we're going to move on to page 319, all the way down here. This word, grave, here. We have a reference to it on page 546, where Zampano says, "This grave I live in." So it's him using it there. And then again on page 606, sorry, just trying to, your mother's grave, so Pelafina's grave. Yeah. Okay, page 320. Oh, this is the one where people read it and they go, wait, this must be a typo. And like, I see so many people pick up on this, but just in case you haven't, he might have spent all night drinking had exhaustion not caught up with me. So this is like the first clue that kind of something's wrong. There are no mistakes. There are no errors in House of Leaves. Right? Okay. Then we have this phrase here about Chad. I'll just read what I. Chad apparently bolted from the house when he heard some kind of murmuring, something about a walker in darkness, then a bang like a gunshot and the sound of a man dying. So this could be a few things. It could be what happens on page 337, over 337, where Holloway is committing suicide. Here. Yeah. Or it could be this note that I made on page 150 about Walker in darkness. It's how Johnny refers to himself at one point. And then again he refers to himself that way again on page 494. So this whole idea of, who's in the house and who the monster is, being the walker in the darkness. We have Johnny saying here, "I walk in total darkness." This could also possibly be a reference to Beowulf, who's a character, to the character of Grendel in Beowulf, who's described as a shadow walker. Grendel's an interesting character. He's a descendant of Cain. We have a lot of references to biblical brothers. I'll refer you back to chapter 11, which was all about biblical brothers. And he's another villain in the story of Beowulf is Grendel's mother, who lives in a cave. So we have those mothers in dark spaces. Yeah. Then we also have a reference here to Daisy. Her forearms a crawl with strange scratches. And we know Johnny has scratches. Pelafina has tried to slit her wrists. So, yeah. And then down here on footnote 270, not even Bill's acquaintance is interesting. So Friends of Bill is actually AA lingo, Alcoholics Anonymous. So if someone like sees you outside the meeting location and you're kind of like being curious, peeking into like doors and windows, you maybe actually asked if you're a friend of Bill's. And this is like a code phrase, so the person's asking whether you're looking for the AA meeting. That's gonna, in a way, that's gonna protect your anonymity as well. And we also have referenced on page 32, where Tom says, "Hey, at least I'm an acquaintance of Bill's now." So he's been going to Alcohol Anonymous as well. Okay, page 321 now. We have this joke about about bullfighters in Madrid, and bulls are important because we have the Minotaur concept as well. And then on page 576, we have a poem that happens after a bullfight in Madrid. Yeah. And I'll talk more about those poems when I get around to poems, if I ever get around to them at the rate I'm going. Okay. Page 322. We have this word, I don't know how to pronounce it, Couchimar. That's what I'm saying. Oh, sorry. Oh, wonderful. There we go. The phrase Couchimar, which means nightmare, from the word couch, which means to press, from the word calx, which also means heel, as in the foot, part of your foot, which is interesting. Again, with the whole theme of feet and House of Leaves. And mar, which means evil spirit, coming from mur, meaning to die. Yeah. Then on page 323, never mind the cat. Hey, no. Sorry. If you know anything about House of Leaves, the cat's running around is kind of creepy right now. Okay. 323. Navidson's toenails on his right feet are torn loose. We know that Johnny has a problem with his foot. He stubbed his toe too. And we get that reference on page 587 that love inhabits more than just the heart and mind. If need be, it can take shelter in a big toe. So love is starting to crack down here. The love between Will and Karen. And then we get references to Karen, her wrists, her beautiful long fingers, which is interesting because Pelafina's fingers are mentioned a lot as well. On page 606, we get a reference to her wrists. Oh yeah, her broken wrists. And on page 630, we get a reference to her long, ridiculous purple nails. Her hands. Okay. Let's skip ahead to page 325. And we have Johnny saying, September, words define me, my mother's words. If we skip over again to Pelafina's letters, she is throughout the book. So we have this letter from September 7th, 1984. This letter here. Trenton is an old friend. I feel like I should have written more about that, but I didn't. So I'm gonna make a note to and I constantly update my my notes on Google Docs too, so I'll put them there. Trenton is an old friend, and if we go to the footnote 277, it's just a bunch of blank lines. We also get a reference on page 507 to another old friend with another reference to blank lines there. So could that be Trenton there too? Who knows? Page 326. This thing has created me. It's this idea that Johnny isn't real, like the book or whoever is in charge of the book has created him. Thin air. And then agape could mean agape, but it could also mean I think it's pronounced agape. That's how I'm going to pronounce it, which is the love of God for all mankind. And we get a concept of God being the house later on in the book. We're going to jump over to page 327 and look at the King of Hearts. It's actually called the Suicide King because if you look at it, I don't have a King of Hearts card. It looks like he's stabbing himself in the head. I hate these selling ones. Not the link. Open image. So it looks like he's stabbing himself in the head there. So that's an interesting notion. And then you get this reference to the horror beyond all horror. The darkest angel of all, the horror beyond all horror, sits at last upon my chest. And that could, I think, be a reference to this painting here, which is called The Nightmare by Henry Fuseli, where we have this, demon sitting on this woman's chest. Kind of, creepy depiction of a nightmare there. We also get a reference to veined in bees purple, and purple is Pelafina's color. So that is interesting. I don't always have much to say. As I say, I'm just going through and doing my references. I don't have fully developed. I do have theories, but this video is not about exploring theories. It's just about showing references. Nothing here of significance. Page 330. We have a reference to this guy, Wilhelm Steckel, who committed suicide. I just thought that was interesting. This whole indented section here on page 331 refers to Pelafina and her suicide. And we have this whole idea of the oral stage, and Pelafina is constantly referenced to, not more so than just her wrists and her fingers. She's more so referenced to her mouth. She's talking about her mouth, her tongue, about kisses, about licking, and that kind of stuff. And we have this regressively identifying with the object, and I thought Johnny is the object for Pelafina there. Now we have footnote 285, Ned H. Cassem, who is a real person. I'm just going to open up this link here. I'll close some of these windows here. Accept cookies. And he wrote this book, Treating the Person Confronting Death. Yeah. I didn't really think there's much in there. I couldn't really look at this because I don't have access and I don't want to pay subscriptions to this. So yeah, he's a degree in philosophy from St. Louis. Okay. We also have another real person here. If I don't... Armin M. Nikolai. He's also a real person. I don't know why I didn't talk about him. I have a book by him. So... but then we have Robert John Campbell. It's another real person. I'm just going to open up here. The archive... Is that going to open? Okay. Archive.org is really good about having a lot of access to books. Yeah. So there's that. But I'm gonna read this quote from him. In depressions, the following dynamic elements may be operative. The depressed patient loses the object that he or she depends upon for narcissistic supplies. In an attempt to force the object's return, the patient regresses to the oral stage and incorporates, swallows up, the object, thus regressively identifying with the object. The sadism originally directed against the deserting object is taken up by the patient's superego and is directed against the incorporated object, which now lodges within the ego. Suicide occurs not so much as an attempt on the ego's part to escape the inexorable, I can't say that word, that demands of the superego, but rather as an enraged attack on the incorporated object in retaliation for its having deserted the patient in the first place. We know through Pelafina's letters that she accuses Johnny of deserting her. Okay. Page 332. We get a reference to Rock Island East. Don't worry about my notes. You see I move them from page to page. So like if you see a note and I don't reference it, it's probably in reference to the next page. Rock Island East is a real place. This is where Navidson fought. It was part of the Cambodian campaign in the Vietnam War. And it's interesting that we have Will Navidson fighting this war because we also know Zampano fought in the Indo-China War, which was like the precursor to the Vietnam War. So like they both fought in the Vietnam War. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, page 333, we get a reference to Gaston Bachelard. And I got this quote from him that I thought was significant. For a house that was final, one that stood in symmetrical relation to the house we were born in, would lead to thoughts, serious, sad thoughts, and not to dreams. It is better to live in a state of impermanence than one of finality. Gaston did architectural analysis based on lived experiences with a focus on the personal emotional responses to buildings, both real buildings and fictional buildings, which I thought was fascinating. I actually have been very slowly working my way through his one of his books, which is very dense. Let me tell you that. And then we also get a reference here to typefaces, and its font plays a very important part in House of Leaves. So I'm going to talk about the fonts. Maybe we can actually, I wonder if I have all the fonts. So I'm going to copy this, open up a new document. So, Zampano writes in the Times New Roman, which is the academic font. That's what it looks like. Let's make this bigger. I don't know, like 30? No. Okay. I don't have my 3. Is that too big? Oh, that's good. All right. So Johnny writes in Courier. I'm just gonna put Courier new. And Courier can mean messenger. I linked that to Hermes, the god Hermes, who's a messenger god. And Hermes is linked to the bald gnome error, which I will talk about when that comes up. Pelafina is Dante. I don't know if I have this font. Oop, Dante. I don't have that font. So, sorry about that. Is that? No. Okay. The editors are in Bookman. I don't know if I have this one either. No, I don't have that one either. Oh, it is changing. Interesting. Navidson's is Book Antica. That still changed? Huh. Karen is Helvetica Nev. Sure. And Tom is American Typewriter. So that's what all the different fonts look like. I thought that was obvious that the editors were in Bookman font. Navidson's, the one letter that we have by him, is written in the book Antiqua. Yeah. Okay. Just thought that was interesting. Okay. Page 334. We have a reference to this person, Floyd Collins, who was a real person. And he did get trapped in a cave after and knocked over his lamp, so he was in complete darkness. The reference to angels and chariots and liver and onions and chicken sandwiches is actually a hallucination he had while being stuck down there. And it's quite a sad story that he was still in contact with people on the outside trying to rescue him He died before they could save him. And I thought this was really weird. They made a musical about his death. And I guess... Can I get that link? There we go. You can watch it on YouTube. I was very confused as to why they would do this. This is one song from them. Floyd Collins. The Ballad of Floyd Collins. Like, imagine dying in such a horrific way and they make a musical about it? This, like, I don't know. Don't know if they have.
Deep in the land of the hollows and creeks, if and you get lost for weeks. Listen to the tale of a man who got lost 100 feet under the winter frost.
Yeah. I don't know. I haven't watched the musical, but I thought that was quite interesting. Okay. We also get this reference to fear mantras down here. And there's lots of different fear mantras. I thought it was interesting. I picked a few. There's the most well-known one, obviously, from Dune. You must not fear. Fear is the mind killer. Fear is the little death that brings total obliteration. I will face my fear. I will permit it to pass over me and through me. And when it has gone past, I will turn the inner eye to see its path. Where the fear has gone, there will be nothing. Only I will remain. And I thought that was interesting in regards to House of Leaves. Is that only one thing will remain. And then there's also one from Julius Caesar by Shakespeare that I thought was interesting. Cowards die many times before their deaths. The valiant never taste of death but once. Of all the wonders that I have yet heard, it seems to me most strange that men should fear, seeing that death, a necessary end, will come when it will come. Yeah. We also get a reference to Menominee, Wisconsin, I'm assuming. And I looked this place up because that's where, Holloway Roberts is from, Menominee, Wisconsin. And aside from the Menomina, that was the only thing that was running through my head when I first read that. Anyways, there's a theater in Menominee called the Mabel Tainter Theater, and it's about a young woman in the 1880s who's forced to have an abortion and died shortly after. And her father built the theater in her honor, and apparently it's haunted. It's also near a place called the Devil's Punch Bowl, which is a park surrounded by 30-feet cliffs on either side. And apparently various gnome settings have been reported, along with strange orbs of light. And there's also rumor that the water collected from the area will maintain clarity and a cool temperature for days. So let's just open up this link so you can see the picture of the Devil's Punch Bowl here. There's the Mabel Tainter Theater. There's the inside of the theater. I just thought that was interesting. Bit of a reach there, but that's what we're doing with House of Leaves. There's fear mantras right there. 335. We get a reference to Pelias, who is an ancient Greek king of Iolcus. I'm not Greek or ancient, or a king. Can't pronounce that word. He was actually threatened by Jason the Argonaut, who is more well known, as Jason was the potential heir to the throne before Pelias. So he sent Jason on the quest to go find the Golden Fleece. So we have this idea of this impossible quest, and again a lot of reference of minotaurs and daedalus and labyrinths and stuff like this in here. It's interesting because Pelias, got overconfident when he heard that Jason's ship had sunk. We have multiple ships sinking. In House of Leaves, we know that Johnny was on one. So when Jason returned, he refused to give up his throne, but then Pelias was then murdered by his daughters, who cut him up and put him into a stew. Because that's what you do when your father is mad. Don't follow any advice from ancient Greek myths. Anywho, page 336. This was me attempting to outline the bull that this is supposedly showing. Yeah, don't mind that. The shape of the text was supposed to be like a minotaur. But here we have a reference to Daedalus, who is the guy who built the labyrinth in Greek mythology to house the minotaur. We also get a reference to Saint Mark's god. So I thought maybe like Mark Z. Danilevsky, could he be the saint? And who is his god? But then I also looked at like Saint Mark. He wrote down the sermons of Peter the Apostle, and that informs what we know as the Gospel of Mark. But as with the Gospels, the identity of the author is not actually known, and it's actually contested. There could actually be multiple Marks. The sermons written by St. Mark were also used as a source for the Gospels of Luke and Matthew. So that this whole idea of like not knowing who the author is, multiple authors, and then like that thing informing other pieces of work. Kind of sounds a lot like House of Leaves. There's some key differences in Mark's Gospel. We don't have a virgin birth. He never called Jesus God. Only actually references him as the son of Mary. So again, we have that mother-son relationship. And it's actually the origin of the death phrase of Jesus, the my God, why have you forsaken me? Yeah. What have we... I did not highlight this part. Frankenstein. Oh, yes, here. Begone, relieve me from the sight of your detested form. This is a quote from Shakespeare, or not Shakespeare, from Frankenstein. Wow. From Frankenstein, this whole idea of creating a son, creating another person, creating something that turns into a monster. We also have a reference to Androcles, who's a man who befriended a lion after he actually sheltered in its cave, and he pulled a thorn from the lion's paw. And the lion was supposed to actually kill him in the arena, but the lion was like, oh, you're the guy that helped save me. And Androcles was set free by the emperor for his beautiful display of friendship with a beast. Okay. Page 337. The first word on that page is redwood. That was a story written by Mark Z. Danilevsky. It was actually something that he gave to his father, and his father said, you're never going to make it as a writer. So I'm going to read this quote from an interview that Mark Z. Danilevsky gave. Okay. My father was head of the USC School of Theater. I was living in New York. Then I got the phone call, the Mark, your father is dying phone call. He was in the hospital, renal failure, cancer. I got on the Greyhound bus and headed west. Over the course of 3 sleepless nights and 3 sleepless days, I wrote a 100-plus page piece entitled Redwood. I remember using a fountain pen. I barely had the change to buy sodas and snacks along the way, and here I am scratching out words with this absurdly expensive thing of polished resin and gold. I'd like to say it was a pelican poems, but I don't think that's correct. Another thing I seem to remember, the paper I was writing on had a pale blue cast to it. I'm just going to highlight a few words here. There was also something about how the pen seemed to bite into the paper, and at the same time as it produced these lush sweeps of ink, a kind of cutting and spilling, almost as if the page could bleed. My intention had been to present this piece of writing as a gift to my father. As has been mentioned many times before, my father responded with the suggestion that I pursue a career at the post office. I responded by reducing the manuscript to confetti, going so far as to throw myself a pity parade in a nearby dumpster. My sister responded by returning later to that dumpster, rescuing the confetti, and taping it all back together. Yeah, that's that story. The footnote, 547. Footnote here, page 209, redirects us to page 547. Is this right? 547. Yeah, here, where it's implied that redwood is like a person. Redwood, I saw him once a long time ago when I was young. Yeah. And then we get this phrase, See, need, yeah, I don't have a great French accent. So that French bit means it can only be the end of the world moving forward, and it is from the poem Childhood by Arthur Rimbaud. This one particular, Childhood 4. I think this is the one I referenced anyways. I'm the saint praying on the terrace as the peaceful beasts graze all the way to the Sea of Palestine. I'm the scholar in the dark armchair. The branches and the rain throw themselves at the library crossroads, and the pedestrian on the highway through the dwarfed woods. The murmur of the locks cover my steps. I see for a long time the melancholy golden wash of the sunset. I would be the child abandoned on the jetty, gone to the high seas, the little valet following the path, whose brow touches the sky. The paths are harsh, the mountains are covered, the brooms, the air is still. How far away the birds and the springs are. It can only be the end of the world as we advance. This translation is just done through Google. But I thought this line was important. I would be the child abandoned on the jetty, gone to the high seas, the little valet following the path, whose forehead touches the sky. So Johnny gets abandoned by both his mother and father. He ends up living with his stepdad, and then he goes and becomes a worker on a ship, so he goes to the high seas. And I thought this part was interesting to see. I say that one must, this is another quote from Rimbaud. I say that one must be a seer, make oneself a seer. The poet makes himself a seer by a long, prodigious, and rational disordering of the senses. Every form of love, of suffering, of madness, he searches himself. He consumes all the poisons in him and keeps only their quintessences. You guys are realizing that I can't pronounce a lot of words. This is an unspeakable torture during which he needs all his faith and superhuman strength, and during which he becomes the great patient, the great criminal, the great accursed, and the great learned one among men. For he arrives at the unknown because he has cultivated his own soul, which was rich to begin with, more than any other man. He reaches the unknown, and even if crazed, he ends up losing the understanding of his vision. At least he has seen them. Let him die charging through those unutterable, unnameable things. Other horrible workers will come. They will begin from the horizons where he has succumbed. And so this idea that, this part too, other horrible workers will come, and they will begin from the horizons where he succumbed. So the other people will take over the work that has taken him. We get this reference here to the tyrant Phalaris and the Romans listening to Perilaus, Devilish's Chamber. So, Phalaris was a cannibal, apparently, who ate young babies. That was the myth and legend around him anyways. And he ordered a sculptor named Perilaus, that's how I'm going to say it, to make him a brazen hollow bull. So this bull could hold a man inside it, and it was used in an execution machine. The condemned person was placed inside, then the bull was closed and the fire was lit underneath it. And the sculpture was made in such a way that while the condemned met a horrible death in the burning furnace, their cries were said to sound like the bellowing of a bull. And despite his cruelties, Phalaris gained in medieval times a certain literary fame as the author of an epistolary corpus. So in 1699, Richard Bentley published an influential dissertation on the epistles of Phalaris, in which he proved that the epistles were misattributed and had actually been written around the 2nd century AD. So this idea that Phalaris wrote this book, but it was then disproved that he did not actually write that book. Okay. Page 338. Here we get a reference to the Khumbu ice fall. And this is actually the head of the Khumbu Glacier and the route of the western sim on Mount Everest. It's one of the most dangerous stages on the route to Everest summit, and it's a passage of like almost constantly falling ice. We get this thing here that Johnny writes that says, Zampano is trapped, but where may surprise you, he's trapped inside me. So it's like Johnny the Bull and his Zampano trapped inside him, dying and making all these noises to get out. So we get that reference to that Phalaris bull story. We have the Greek Koros here, which is the personified spirit of insolence, disdain, and surfeit. It was very hard to find any reference to what this guy was. He was the son of Hybris, which is excessive pride. He was the brother to Disibia, which was the lack of reverence and impiety. And the only reference I could find to him was from Herodotus's histories, where divine deity Justice will extinguish mighty Chorus greed, the son of Hybris, insolence, lusting terribly, thinking to devour all. And then John Hollander, this guy right here, he wrote poems, and I thought this poem was interesting, or this idea that he wrote about poems. Poetry in general might be said to be full of the stuff of haunting and witchcraft. Poetic language itself, indeed the very nature of metaphor, has its own spells and magic and metamorphosis. Early in the history of modern literature, witches, goblins, ghosts, and demons of various sorts were simply part of nature for both poets and their readers. Candlelight spawns millions of strange shadows. And here I thought that is like referencing Tom's story. That could be, not this quote was referencing it, but Tom's story is linked there. We have him doing the shadow on the candlelights. Anyways, candlelight spawns millions of strange shadows, pregnant with ghostly possibilities. Drafty houses produce momentary chills. Better heating and brighter illumination dispel not only ghosts, but beliefs as well. And there is a poem cited. It would annihilate us all to see the huge shape of our being mercifully, and it's another poem by Borges. We'll just open it up here. It's very short, so I'll read it. Quadruped in the dawn, erect at noon, and wandering on 3 legs across the blind spaces of afternoon. So the eternal Sphinx saw her inconstant brother, man. And to her rocky silence came a man who unlocked the riddle in the mirror. Terrified, he saw the shattering image of his destruction and his error. We are Oedipus, doomed as he to be the triple beast, child, savior, suppliant, all that will be, all that we have been. It would annihilate us in an instant to glimpse our monstrous being. Mercifully, God grants us issue and oblivion. So, a reference to Oedipus there and the relationships between mothers and sons. Just excuse me, I need to grab some water. This is going to be a long video. I apologize. There's a lot going on in this chapter. Okay. There's my notes on Borges right there. Okay, next page 339. Just a interesting word, rebarbative, which means irritating, repellent, from rebarber to oppose, from barb, meaning beard. The word means to stand literally beard to beard. He comically clicks his heels. Tom does that. It's spelled H-E-A-L-S here, and it should be H-E-E-L-S. But this also alludes to the idea of healing your feet, healing your love. Then we have reference to a magazine here, The World of Interiors. It's a real magazine, and this is the October 1994 issue. Just close some of these windows here. Here's the magazine here, The World of Interiors. And here's the contents of page 56. Oh, it doesn't mention them, but I'll link this below and you can look through it. I think I didn't really find anything that could be linked to House of Leaves here, but it's there if you ever want to look at it. Okay, let's jump to page 340. 341, actually. Martin Juarez, which is the birth name of, Juarez is the birth name of Francois Sagan, author of Bonjour Tristesse, and known for portraying female sexual freedom in her books. So we have a big chapter on Karen coming up next. So that idea of like feminine sexuality and stuff is really prevalent to her. And then we're going to jump a bit more to page 344 to this Lot's face. That's how I'm going to say it, which is just another reference to Mount Everest. And lastly, we're almost done here. Page 345. Bloody lines along his forearm. This is Tom. Similar to Johnny's scars, to Pelafina's scars, to Daisy's scars. A lot of scars and blood on arms. And I just realized that's the end of chapter 13. Let me know your thoughts on this. And thank you so much for watching.